Happy Friday, right? It's Friday. I got a fan going. I tried to put it as far away as I could so I could still feel the effects without it interfering with the audio qualities. So let me know if you, whoops, I forgot to turn one of my lights. Hold on a second. A little bit more light. Aziz, light. Try to set it so that you can't see the I noticed too, actually, my angle's changed. I don't like it in frame. All right. I got some cobwebs. One thing in this house, man, this has been something since I was a wee child. There have been spiders. I mean, there must be I could imagine it being its own species at this point of spiders lives in this house. And they're everywhere, and I don't even mind it because I presumably they get rid of a lot of other things, and I would also I would imagine that if there are all these spiders can live in the house, they've got to be eating something. I suppose they could be eating other spiders, but they're here, and like I said, we tend to live in harmony. They probably recognize they were all the same family, so to speak. But whenever I'm not here, and I'm here fairly often, I mean, I'm not here every week, but it seems like last time I was here was maybe only a few weeks ago. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me do something right quick. All right. Only a few weeks ago. And feel like there's webs everywhere. And I feel like there's always webs that I don't see. So it seems like, that they just appeared overnight. But just between like yesterday, I have a mic up here. You could see it before because it dipped down, but it's just kind of right up there. And just all kinds of webs. And of course, some web dangling down. Frederick, happy Friday, Frederick. Happy Friday, everybody. Yep, House of Wolf. Chaotic alignment confirmed. Absolutely. But anyway, we're here, and now I turned off the overhead light. I can't see the shadow of the mic upon my face, which is good. I always dislike that. Brian Smith mentioned they threw a bunch of battle maps on the forum. I was about to go there, Brian Smith. I just responded, and in fact, I've got my screen share queued up. So if we don't implode laptop, keep on trucking. There we go. So this is a good place to start at the forums.hexed.press. We are small, yet we be fierce. What is this? And this is back to Blueberry Lemonade Polar. The worker man. First off, I should probably just give a general shout out to Brian Smith, who's shared so many amazing works. So I have some stuff queued up, but we'll go. I have some stuff of his that I haven't looked at yet. So posted some VTT. I think these are these based on those same abstract maps you did the other day. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, he posted some kind of warped grids on with some abstract art. And I mentioned that they might make good hex maps otherwise. And then he came out with these, this one's kind of cool. Looks like fur. I mean, talk about, because I think I mentioned one of them seemed like you might be fighting on the arm of one of those, a god, a dead god. This could be, the back of some huge beast fighting over, or just tall grasses. Yes, real grids. Very cool. I like the color schemes too. And they're really great because they're very evocative. This one here I could see could be snow and ice, could be a shoreline or some kind of breakers. Really nice. And this one, obviously, if you need your lava and magma grid, you've got that. And these were a follow-up to, where was it? These, just gotta scroll back up here. This is the one I thought, like, man, this would be cool if you're on the some kind of the arm of some kind of downed giant and you're fighting on it. But it could also be lots of things. I like these a lot too. I think the only thing that I mentioned that in my comment was that if you're going to print these out and use them, obviously make sure you've got your black cartridge. Make sure your black, if you're putting them at home, make sure your blank cartridge is full, because these will wear them out. I would send these to Kinko's or whatever Kinko's like place. You could just print and use up their ink. But I just think, I only think it was like, as cool as it is having these warped grids, I don't think that we're at a point yet in which something like Roll20 or Foundry or Fantasy Grounds or anything could accurately parse them. They definitely come across as very dreamy. They're very cool. They're evocative. And of course, you could just take these and lay on your own grids if you wanted to. Let's see. Is there anything else people posting here? I was going to go to the Lemmy as well, because some of these are PDFs that I haven't downloaded yet, like the Sandbox Generator. I do want to look at, and Maladum. I'll save these for their own things, but I wanted to highlight those. Highlight those Brian Smith creations, and if you want to see more of those, you want to comment on them directly, or download them, or do whatever you want, go to forums.hexed.press. You can see that. I've got, here's the Frederick is like the master of the Lemmy group, because he posts way more often than I get around to. Let's see. So I figure I'll go in. I have some, like I said, I have some stuff queued up, but I always want to go through and, you know, highlight stuff from the community, since I do call this a community stream. Frederick said they posted up a big fix for what was it, fantasy medieval campaigns. I saw you posted a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like too much for me to read through even. Someone asked about the Blue Home. I hope nothing bad has happened. I'm the only one, I guess, who's commented, but I guess the guy behind the Blue Home, which I kickstarted ages ago and I enjoy, but I haven't done a video on it, maybe to my detriment. But his stuff, his online presence seemed to have disappeared. So if you know where Michael Thomas of Blue Home fame is, help us out. But you know, it's hard to tell, because social media can be so draining and just unfun, unfulfilling, that I don't blame folks at all who just decide to just pull the plug and say, you know what, I'm done. He didn't seem like somebody who would have been in a lot of the more controversial things. But I don't know. But hopefully he's okay. Hopefully it's pulled because he's all right, and he just wants to get away from it, and maybe his website's in between something or other, and it's not something more serious, because that would be a bummer. I saw this. Someone posted about someone posted about this on Mastodon, and then I reposted, or I brought it. I'll go to the article because this is kind of cool. So if you use Obsidian, use Obsidian. Obsidian is a markdown based document organizer processor. You can write, if you've watched my streams, my working lunch streams, open office streams, not yesterday's, but the ones prior, you saw I was in a markdown document working. I was inside Obsidian. It gives you essentially flat files, markdown files, and you can put them in folders, but it's basically a way to just organize. You can do cross-linking stuff that actually, there's a lot of the features I don't really use that much. I'm kind of using it right now just very simply for just editing markdown. But someone, I guess Michael H., was able to take Text Mapper, which is like Hex Describe, if you've seen those tools over at the, Campaign Wiki, and found a way to integrate it with Obsidian. And the example is here. And he calls it a very large hex map, which it is indeed. And I'll just read it. This was posted to his co-host, Michael H. co-host. He's at Modality. And, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm not going from computer to computer, so I can actually post this into the chat. So I will post a link. It'll show up in the chat in a minute, and then I'll post it on screen thereafter. Frederick Gork says that Obsidian's got some cool tricks. Let's hope it keeps updating and does not fade away in 6 months. I think Obsidian's been around a little while, so it's not that new that it's going to disappear in 6 months. I don't think there's any fear of that, Frederick. It's been around a bit longer than that. I think it's safe. Now, that's not to say they're going to keep iterating on it forever. Who's to say? But I think it's pretty well thought of. At this point, it's in a pretty good spot, and I think other folks will be coming in and doing plugins. It's got a lot of plugins, things you can do. I don't even take advantage. The one thing I've done, which is good, is if you have GitHub, you can maybe do this with other ones, you can set it so that you essentially can set up a repository for whatever you're working on in Obsidian, and there's a plugin that will essentially, as you're updating it, and you can set it to, I have it set on a time, like every 5 minutes that I'm working on it, but you could also set it to, when you open or close a document, it'll essentially push it up into GitHub. So you can have that constant kind of backup. So if you're like me and you're maybe working on a laptop that may die in any second and you want to, or even actually I have it on my other computer right now, I just want to make sure that it's being backed up somewhere that you can potentially pull it down remotely and save it, then that plugin works really well. And there's tons and tons of other plugins. I was finding, because I was using I've tried essentially using Microsoft, OneDrive, also iCloud, and I just found sometimes it's just the clunky. Well, one, they don't have version control. At least I don't. If they do, I don't know how to integrate those features. So it can just be clunky there, and you have no. You can save it on iCloud, then download it somewhere else, but it doesn't have any kind of robust tools for, let's say, if you have conflicting changes or anything like that. It doesn't have any kind of revision record. So at this point, if I'm doing a bunch of work in Obsidian and I want to roll back, I can go to GitHub and roll back. You can't, iCloud, they don't have that kind of stuff. And I just found that it wasn't working very well for me. Sometimes, even though I would say, always download the latest copy on the drive, sometimes it wouldn't be there when I needed it. Sometimes I'm waiting. I feel like I'm waiting and waiting and waiting for iCloud to go through. Like it shows on my computer, like, oh, it's been updated, but then I'm going to the other, like my phone or whatever, and I'm like, it's not there, it's not there. Whereas I feel like with GitHub, if it tells me it's pushed, and then I can just grab it. It's a lot more, I think, transparent in the way in which it works. I will go to the Wilderness pages, actually. Thanks, Brian Smith, for the reminder. I will go back and hit those up because, yeah, I want to go through those. Ian said they tried Notion, tried Nuclino. Not really into Obsidian. Just going to over-engineer the hell out of their own solution. Hey, if you've got the engineering chops to do it, and more than welcome. Is there anything, Ian, that you don't like about Obsidian, or just you feel like you've tried enough third-party tools? I've never heard of Nuclino. The one I actually really like for just what's it called? I like it for more notes. It's called LogSeek. And I guess since we're going down rabbit holes before I read this article, might as well. I was trying to, let me just go to LogSeek itself. So this is what I've been using for. This is less about, this is more about, LogSeek is more about, for me anyway, at least the way I'm perceiving it, it could be different. It's very atomic. So if you go to Obsidian or like a markdown document, right? So Obsidian has a markdown document that you're in. Okay, this is notes, you're in it. And that document is kind of a thing. Whereas and you have it in kind of a flat folder. Whereas in LogSeek, each block within your document is its own thing. And then what you can do is, let's say and I think the way I'm still kind of working through it. I've just started using it. The way that it seems like it's envisioned to work is to be eliminate as many barriers to just getting stuff on paper, right, on virtual paper. So for example, I last week I was on my iPad. I have LogSeek. I was playing in Daniel's game, and I was also jotting down some notes for my own thing, just as they would come to me. So I just had one. This kind of I think they call it the notebook view in LogSeek. It just has the date, And so I had essentially, and just a, and you end up forming hierarchies because everything in LogSeq is kind of hierarchy. So you have your base element, and you could tab something in to kind of nest it, and then you can also isolate views and all that stuff. But basically, what you could do is just you're in that view, you're taking notes. Oh, okay, I'm jumping here, I'm jumping there. I'm working on something for my dice pool system, just jotting down a note. Great, I jot that down there. Okay, I'm taking notes of what we're doing in Daniel's game. I'm jotting that up here. Now, let's say I also had a page that was for my my system. I can bring the notes I put in that notebook view, just like your daily writing pad, into that game. I can basically link, essentially take that block that I made and link it to the other thing, and it'll drop in there. And then it can even be in a sense like a two-way link. So I edited it in that notebook page, my daily planner notebook page, and it's there. Those changes, once I've linked it over, will link to that other document. If I'm in the other document and I'm working on it, those changes will also be reflected. And you can do it. There's a couple different ways you can link to it. So it's got some really neat stuff, but it's really all about this to me anyway, this kind of atomic level of, instead of having a whole document, it's like you have all the bits, and then you can cross-link the bits, and you can do all the things with the bits, and it's kind of about, hey, get all your bits out. Get all your bits out, and then you can move things around and do it non-destructively, in a sense. It's the way I'm looking at it. And I've also, and you can see there when I was pulling up the address, there are ways to actually use together Obsidian and LogSeq. I haven't really gotten into that. I'm not even sure if I'll get that far. We'll see. I'm kind of doing things baby steps, but it's kind of cool. Anyhow, that's LogSeq, and you can check more about that. And obviously, I have no affiliation with them, and it's free. And I think you can host it yourself if you want to make your own. I think you can totally host it, do everything on your own. And they have iOS apps. So I was able, like I said, I was on my iPad, and I also have it on my desktop at home. I don't have it on here yet, but you can do that. Okay, back to the article about Obsidian Text Mapper, which is, oops. And let me zoom in, shall I? Okay, based on Text Mapper, and that's over at Campaign Wiki, right? I think, or somewhere. I have created, and this is, I'm speaking in Michael H's voice, just in case that's not clear. Based on Text Mapper, I have created a plugin which generates SVG hex maps directly in your obsidian.md documents. The above image was generated by getting the source for an Alpine map from Hexed Describe, and then pasting that into my plugin in Obsidian. It took probably 10 seconds to render this whole image, but it is much snappier for smaller maps. This is not yet part of Obsidian's community plugins, and I'm not sure when I'll pull it up there. I want to minimize support requests from the general public. Therefore, I'd want the plugin to be able to export the rendered SVG to a file before I consider it ready for prime time. And then you've got a link to the GitHub. So it's kind of a neat thing. You can grab stuff from Text Mapper and Hexed Describe and then throw it into your Obsidian document. So just a little bit on that. Before I forget, let me go back to the forums, and let's see, wilderness features. Here we go. So again, this is the great Brian Smith put these together. I will just read what he wrote on the forums, and I'll link to this. I'll throw you a direct link so you can go here and check it out at your own leisure. If you do decide to sign up, I do still have to approve manually. I don't ask for blood or anything. I just have to go in and I just go in and kind of give it a once over. I don't have any complex systems to verify whatever. I just give it a human once over, and then I hit the approve button. So if you ever do try to join in and it's not an automatic process, that's because it's waiting on me. You can always ping me, and then I'll try to get to it. So apologies for that in advance if you happen to try to join. Other than that, it should be all pretty good. And I had an email problem for a little while, but I fixed that. So all the emails, any emails should be going out. For a hot minute, they weren't. Okay. Brian Smith said, going off a homebrewed hex crawl procedure, for every 4 hours of travel, roll a handful of dice, D6, D8, and 3D4. The D6 determines if you encounter a creature or landmark. The D8 determines what kind of creature or landmark, and the D4s determine terrain, behavior, or items for creatures, and weather or terrain or details for landmarks. Pick any D4 you like, and that's the hour the encounter occurs within the 4-hour block of travel time. I've set up the landmark dashboard for a plains region in my world and made pages for the 4 possible locations. Only 4 entries on a roll table doesn't sound like much, but the idea is that the combination of a D4 roll tables creates encounters with a constant theme, but not identical or repetitive. Here's the main dashboard for the Daybreak Plains. Let's see, this should blow it up a bit more. Yes, I did. I did reject Terrence, first name Terrence. I'm not even going to go and see. See, the funny thing with, and I don't mean to go down other rabbit holes, but there's some interesting stuff with. Let me go through his thing first, and then I can go on a little thing about the forums, because it's been a very interesting journey, ongoing journey with the forums. But so here we have a region with a blank where you can put the name. These are called the Daybreak Plains. We have that kind of Punnett square almost, if you will, of the 4 locations: Dawn Tower, Ancient Ruin, Troll Lair, and the Stone Gate. We've got a little key here that shows about what the various dice are doing: your D6, your D8, and your D4s. The D8 gives you all your features. Of course, you can repeat, so you can set some probabilities. You can set up a little probability curve action, if you will, for which features roll up. Then you've got your terrain: dry and cracked, sporadic trees, lowland, thin scrub forest, and then what the effect is. Disadvantage on foraging, or advantage on rolls during rest, advantage on survival, advantage on forage, and then weather: lightning storms, strong winds, rainstorms, or blazing sun, and then some effects on those. So that's just the start. So then you get into these pages, which I think are really cool, for the various areas. So then you get to, here's this location page for the Dawn Tower. I love the art. And get a little bit about it. What can you do with this? You can aim towards other Dawn Towers to chain a sunbeam together. Once 3 are aligned, a secret is revealed. And then this bit here is a 6-foot tall solid stone that weighs 500 pounds. And then you've got your encounter type and your feature detail. This is kind of nice too. It's he's grayed out the dice you don't need, so you get a bit of a unity of design. So that these are appearing on all the different pages, and then you get some details about the feature, and then he came up with one for each of them, which are all very cool. This is a great piece of art too. All super cool, other than the Ancient Ruins, with kind of a little bit like a little map in there too. So really great stuff. Very, very nice. So go check out those on the forums. I don't really have anything to say about it. I think they're really nice and evocative. I mean, I think for my own usages, I might choose some different dice systems, especially since what I'm working on right now, I'm trying to do D6 only. So just for myself, combos don't work, but I really love the layout. I love how clear everything is. It's just really great. And I mean, just kind of personally, I like the handful of different dice method. I'm just not using it for myself right now. But in terms of just kind of a fun way, just dropping a bunch of dice. The other thing you could do, though maybe it gets too complicated, is you could do that other thing, which is kind of spatially where the dice are. Like, is the D4 above the D8? Or, it might get too complicated, though. But very cool. Is there anything else I'm missing from the forums before I return? I don't think so. Did I cover this one? Did we do this one? Oh, this is similar, but this is for creatures. Maybe an earlier iteration. Or maybe the same iteration, because obviously the design stuff matches. But instead of what you're encountering in terms of locations, it's creatures, and you get cockatrice, so red moon grub. Oh, I like that. Troll and the goblins. Always got to have some goblins. Really, really, really neat stuff. Oh, so I was going to say about forums. It's really fascinating, somewhat depressing as a forum admin when you look at what would be the word I'm looking for? Say adoption, right? So this is a small forum. I mean, you can look here. I almost wish it wouldn't show these because it just feels depressing. Like, look at how many of these are like me by myself. I mean, these are all the ones by myself are generally like I'm posting when streams, I'm doing stuff. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't make sense that a lot of them, I don't, it would be great if people posted comments in these threads, but people don't, which is fine. And a lot of these other ones, it's me and one other person. A lot of Brian Smith, depending on when you catch folks a lot of the day. This does not actually reflect the amount of people who have actually created accounts at the forum, but a lot of those people they drift away. For whatever reason, they have the best of intentions. I mean, I fully blame myself. There's just not enough here to call people back. Brian Smith posts amazing stuff. I'll post some stuff. I don't think what I post is generally amazing because oftentimes it's just, hey, I'm streaming, or hey, this video's live. And every once in a while, which I do want to get better at, is actual posting content. But it just doesn't have I haven't reached whatever the critical mass is for folks to post their own things. And I think part of it is just the forum. I think people are just not, the forum layout, as much as I hear people say like, oh, I miss forums, I want to go back to forums. I don't know that people do. Or maybe just I haven't done a good enough job with this one to make people come back to this one. Because the Lemmy group has done a lot better in that regard than the forums have. I go back over to Lemmy, we're still very small, but there's a lot more. Did I make a group or something? What did I do with the Lemmy group? Oh, no, that's not it. In any case, that's it. The OSR/NSR tabletop community has done a bit better job of hitting some of that critical mass. We're still not getting a ton of new entries every day. It's still going to feel a little bit empty or not as fast moving as, let's say, the Reddit OSR community. And I haven't been, other than when I posted, which I did post to the OSR subreddit that this was here. That's pretty much the only thing I've done on Reddit since the blackout. And I did answer a couple of comments on there, people asking about it. And that I see that we're growing. It's just interesting, that kind of critical mass thing. And actually, I felt that with the channel too. And I've mentioned in the past, right, with my channel. And I think this with all, and I guess I'm just saying this maybe in case you're at all interested in creating your own Lemmy instance or creating a forum. And I think you should definitely do those things. I think we need more of those. Especially if you have your own niche that's maybe a little bit different. I think we need them all. If you're really interested in Shadow Dark, or in a particular genre, a particular game system like Shadow Dark, or a particular genre, or a particular combination of genre and thing and system, whatever, like make communities, make channels, talk about them. But just be aware that it can feel lonely and depressing when you build something and you tell people, hey, come on over. And even then you see people joining, you're like, oh, great, we're going to be taking off. And then it just feels like you're just falling flat. There's really nothing to do but to do. It's probably the worst when I don't know if it feels worse to people when they're streaming, when you guys sit there and stream, like I've mentioned before, oftentimes where I feel like I'm just talking to myself, where I'm looking at my webcam and I look over to the side and, oh, how many people are listening or watching? Zero. And you can't stop. You got to keep doing it. And you just gotta hope that at some point some folks will start showing up. And luckily for the channel, in terms of streaming, folks have shown up, and I appreciate each and every one of you who comes in and either watches it live, God help you, or comes in and slides through it later. But you just kind of have to, you gotta kind of keep sort of faking it that you're talking to somebody out there until they're actually someone out there to talk to. And with the forums, it's been a struggle. And the thing is, like and this actually came up on Mastodon because Yochai Gal was kind enough when someone asked, like, what community should I go to? Someone asked, like, hey, what community should I go to? I'm leaving Reddit. And Yochai answered, he said, hey, there's my OSR community. And he also pointed out his discourse community. And discourse is also what I run for my forums. And somebody was like, oh, I don't want to go from one commercial product to another. And he had to correct them and say, hey, Discourse is, what they call it, FOSS, free and open source software. And that it's on your server. Like he's like, I pay for that server. I run it myself. It's not part of a company. Same thing. My forums they're not part of some global network commercial thing. Like I spend money to run the server that hosts the forums. It's not a Reddit type thing, but there's a lot of, that's another thing where probably there's a lot of confusion out there, but which I guess is all to say, be generous with your time if you can. And if you do decide to create your own thing, which I think everybody should, or maybe not everybody, but it kind of, if you feel it, you should, you're going to have to work through the fact that you're going to build it and people aren't going to come. I mean, even when people start coming, even when people are signing up, I got to think there's some kind of like 10% rule. Like however many people actually sign up for your forums, only 10% of them are probably going to comment or actually interact with it most of the time. The other 90% are going to maybe visit it once or twice. Maybe they'll look at the emails if you send emails about it, and that's pretty much they're done with it. It's like, it's okay. It faded in the background. You weren't able to, you got them in the net, so to speak, but not enough. And then that 10%, and there's probably another 10% of, well, these 10% will be committed or engaged to a certain level, but the next level, it's probably another 10%. And that's been my experience anyway, but I don't pretend to be expert at any of this nonsense. Ian says that he goes and leaves copies of Karen in little free libraries. Does he? That's awesome. Hey, Kabuki Kid. Welcome, welcome. And Yohai is a pretty awesome dude. Indeed. Brian asks, does Lemmy have channels? The forum kind of buries previous posts that might be spots you want pinned or something for people to come back to. Well, the thing is with the forums, and I don't know how often I use it, but I do. The thing is, so right now, Lemmy does not have something akin to what did Reddit had. It wasn't very good, but Reddit had like a tagging. You could add tags, and then you could filter on tags. As far as I know, Lemmy doesn't have that yet. So you just kind of got to scrap through. Now, on the forums, which I try to do, is we actually have a bunch of categories. So you can see where I have all these. And I actually go through because, like, Brian, when you post, I don't enforce this. I don't enforce someone having to pick a category. So when you post it, generally after you post it, I will put it in a category. So if you went to hex crawls, then you would just see the stuff about hex crawls. If you checked, if you clicked on the battle map tag, you would just have the things that are tagged battle map. So I think one of the things is there's a lot of, you check my stuff. Oh, you can't, there's actually nothing. There should be. Oh, because of battle map. You got to take off the tag. All tags. Then you see all my stuff. So there's actually a lot there how you can filter. You cannot, I do not believe on Lemmy as of yet there's that. And I remember when somebody was saying to me, like, well, why have both the forum and have the Lemmy thing? Like, why? Like, and he was kind of like, well, why do you have the forum? Like, isn't Lemmy the same or isn't it better? And I was like, they're different. And I don't think of the Lemmy to me is a service in a sense I'm doing. That's not even me because I'm not paying for that Lemmy server, but I created it to be kind of a community thing. The forums, it's more mine. I want to have community there, but ultimately it's a place for people to interface with me about my stuff and then hopefully like Brian Smith stuff and other stuff. But it's kind of more like, if it's more about me, OSR, NSR is more about that generally. But there's a lot of stuff with the forums I can do that I can't do with Lemmy because I can make channels. And if somebody came to me and said, hey, if Brian came to me and said, I'd like to have can I have a category that's just my stuff? I would say, great. I could set that up in the forums. No problem. I can't do that on Lemmy. I don't have that. They don't have that kind of sub-organization. I almost think of like the forum is like a whole bunch of Lemmys together. Each one of my categories would in essence be like a Lemmy. So, it's different. Brian Smith says they enjoy Discord. His local gaming shop has a Discord with channels for all topics. Easy to see where the action is that way. This is true. Now, Discord, though, unfortunately, I feel like if it's not already, it is subject to enshittification. And depending on who you are, who you've talked to, and what you believe, may already be on the road to being enshittified. It is a big corporation. It is not. My problems with Discord, and I've been setting up a Discord. I actually have it. It's empty. I just have a bot in there right now. And part of the problem with Discord is, for me, is above and beyond the other stuff, as Reddit was coming down, right? Because I'd have this thing about, let me put the Discord up. People want Discord. Oh, thanks, T-shirt. The problem with Discord is going to be similar to Reddit. They are it is a commercial entity, and you are plugging stuff into that commercial entity. You don't ultimately own it, and they can ultimately change the rules on it whatever they want. It's not web searchable. And yes, you can organize stuff in channels, but trying to find something within a channel can be a bear. I've tried. Someone has the kung fu for if you're trying to search to find something specific, even within a channel, it can be a real pain in the butt. And that it's got that stream, the kind of never-ending stream. I mean, at least if you're scrolling backwards, if you're at the current time now, it's just going as it's going. But so just be aware of that stuff. And as they're starting to pull in more things, they're starting to diversify the services they're offering. But there's also going to be where there's that thing in Nitro, stuff that may be locked behind Nitro subscriptions because they need to make money. They're going to be offering some Patreon like services and shop fronts. So who knows where they'll be going with all that? You can always hope that, hey, these are going to be the good guys, and they're not going to go down the bad road that the overlords from Reddit went down, or Elon Musk did with Twitter, or Zuckerberg with Facebook. But you don't own it, so you don't know. And that, what's that saying, right? If the service, if you're wondering like if you're paying for the service, like you're the client, but if you're getting the service for free, then like you're the commodity. And I don't know. I'm these last few bits, right? I mean, really, starting with WotC and the OGL of these companies and how they start to flex, and how much control do you have over when they start to flex. Now, you're looking at my forums. It's discourse. It's, as Yohaigal mentioned, on Mastodon. It's FOSS. It's free open source software. This is on my server. I pay for it. I run it. Nobody can take this down but me. I mean, presumably I don't, obviously I don't have a physical server. I pay for a service for that. But I mean, yet I could theoretically cross some line in their terms of service. But, for all intents and purposes, it's mine as long as I run it. Nobody can do anything to it. And if Discourse itself pushes up an update that I don't want, I can say, nope, I'm staying right where I'm at. It is mine. And Lemmy and Kbin and Mastodon things, they're like that too. Now, right now I'm running on somebody else's instance, but I could conceivably make my own instance, host it, do everything myself, and do that. You can't do that with Discord. And that was probably a big selling point, like with Slack, everything else. Like and with Reddit too. It's like, I don't want to host my own forum, or I don't want to do this myself. Hey, we're going to do it. And great, it's free. But the bottom line is they own all your content. And who knows what they're going to do with it? Who knows when they're going to start pushing more and more stuff to try to get people to Nitro. And look, there are expenses. Me running these forums isn't free. So I totally get that Discourse, if they're saying, hey, man, we got to pay for this stuff, got to get it back somehow. I get it. But in the end, well, how much control do you have over what they do and how they do it? Very little. And I don't know if you owned a big Discord and you were like, hey, man, I want to pull all my data out of there and do something with it, or just save it. I don't know how. Is there a way in Discord to say, like, if your server on Discord, like, I want to get all my data out, even if it's just for backup purposes? Can you do that? I don't know. I don't know how you do it. So I'm not. I probably will still launch the Discord because it's not going to be the primary thing for me, because I have these other channels. I have Lemmy. I have my forums. I have stuff, so I can have the Discord as kind of adjunct to it. And I'll just make sure that at least if I'm posting my own stuff, that it's going to these other places first, and then link those to Reddit, to Discord. And then on Discord, we can have more talk about it. But that stuff makes me wary. And I've always been wary of the fact that it's not searchable and kind of archivable in sort of a web-based sense. Frederick mentioned that Reddit had the advantage of post being Google search. Yeah, that was it's a very good point, right? Reddit had that part going for it, that you would search stuff online to come to Reddit. Discord, and that's the thing too, like, just from a user standpoint, you could, right, like, someone could come and say, this is great, something I found on my forums, and then kind of hit the Wayback Machine or one of those services that just then it hits an archive of that page and you have it. If you run into a great conversation on Discord and you want to save it, I don't know what options you have. I guess you could highlight, copy, paste everything and kind of dump it somewhere, but there's just not an easy way to do any of that. And I wonder, like, what if you're on some server, and I'm just talking as a user, and this has happened. I think I was on one of these servers that just vanished. The owner was just like gone. And it's like, hope you got everything you wanted off that Discord server, because that guy hit the eject button, or a person, I don't even know, guy, who knows who, I don't even know who it was. That person hit the eject button and they are gone. And all your stuff that you had in that server is gone with it. Good luck. So that stuff kind of gives me pause a bit. Ian, I got a lot of stuff going on. Let's see, let me go back. Okay, yeah, Brian Smith and Jip, I saw that one. Ian says, Discords get way too unwieldy for me once they grow beyond a pretty small number of users. Conversations become impossible to follow unless you're in it live. Yeah, because you get all this overlapping. And I know you can do threads now in Discord, but one of the problems with that is, forums were built for that from the start. Like, that's just part of it, threading, organizing discourse. That's just what forums are for. So it's very easy. And like something like Discourse has tools where if someone were to start a long conversation in one of these threads and it veered into something else, I can easily go and push it off into its own thread. Say, here, go here, discuss. And just things go on and it works super neatly and it's just great. Like Discord, they try to bring those in, but then it's also like, but then you have to kind of follow it, right? So those, like the threading and the replying only works if everybody is on board with it. And if people in the conversation aren't following those things of using the thread or using the reply, then any kind of organization that they're trying to sort of bolt on to their kind of IRC kind of stream is totally lost. And a lot of folks don't. I even find on a Discord that I just have with a couple of friends on it that we don't do that. Like I'll try to hit reply in a thread, but the next person doesn't. And so then it's like, where's the conversation going? And there's no way to really organize it. Whereas forums, that's kind of where it's at. I mean, that's it, So I hear you. I mean, and Discourse, I have never really used it. I think I used it once. Has a chat feature so you can do some kind of chatting, but I've only, I made one announcement. There you go. And that's it. And again, like I wouldn't use this too much in Discourse because just like Discord bolting on something, this to me feels like a bolted on feature. Maybe there's some Discourse forums with a bunch more users that get some life out of that, but I have not. Vendor lock-in, Ian says that's right. Brian Smith says, true, it's handy for people to get online about the same time want to chat. Not a great place to post original content. Yep, it is good for chat. No doubt. And yeah, Frederick says that Discords disappear all the time. And Frederick says if you want to save it, blogging is still the best way. Probably. Though the thing is, I'll say with blogging, particularly OSR, is there's way too much reliance on, I feel like, on Blogger. And I don't know what's going to happen with Blogger. I don't know when the last time Google has updated Blogger in any meaningful way. But I would always just be very wary with hitching your wagon to something like that. Because I don't know what it does for Google. I mean, I'm on YouTube. So you go, haha, Todd, look at you. You're talking about Blogger when you're on YouTube. I think YouTube's a pretty good moneymaker. I do back up things to Odyssey and things like so. YouTube is not just the absolute single bucket where all my work is. But I'd always be concerned that you're just going to get one of these. Oh, yeah, we decided to sunset Blogger. Goodbye, Blogger. And much like everything else, take it to something you can host yourself if you really want to keep it. If you really want it to be forever, then I feel like you got to plunk a little bit money down. Even if you're going to go to like WordPress.com or something, because I don't think WordPress is going away anytime soon. Plunk some money down so that you're a client and get everything, then you become the client. Then you become the person who's being served as opposed to the thing that is being served to someone else. And I will be relaunching my actual website soon, which I haven't done in forever, but I'm slowly getting that ready. Something to come. Are you being served? I used to watch that show way back in the day. All right, where were we? Let me see if there's anything else. Some of these are videos, so it doesn't that kind of. Oh. Or we'll go. Actually, you know what? Let me go through my backlog first. Hold on. I had some stuff on the backlog. This is one of them from Prismatic Wasteland. Let me zoom in here. Man, it's already at 50 minutes. I'm only going to get like a couple things done. Well, Brian Smith, you got highlighted today. If I only did one thing today, I highlighted Brian Smith's excellent work. And Brian Smith, I want to DM you about something. So I might send you a message on the forums or somewhere. I don't think we're connected on Discord or somewhere else where we can DM, but I got, or maybe we are, because I think I asked you about something else. I'll have to look it up. But if not, I want to run something by you. Maybe later today I'll hit up. Yep, Substack. Yep, I have a Substack that I haven't updated forever. I need to get back to doing that too. Yeah, I think for the monetizing, and that's one of the big issues outside of, like, one of the big things I've been looking at is, I have been looking at, like, are there alternatives to YouTube? The problem is the monetization part of it. And as much as I get that everyone hates the ads element. Oh, Nightbot. Brian Smith's tried to do something with Nightbot. Go up. I didn't hit this one, I don't think. I hit another Prismatic Wasteland last weekend. There was two. I ended up hitting one of them. If I'm repeating myself, my memory might just be getting worse than I thought. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The problem with the alternatives, as I see to YouTube, is you can monetize it in terms of donations. And maybe I'll get to a point. I have a Patreon, and I'm trying to post there more often. I'm going to try to be posting more exclusive content. And I have some folks who are backers, which are awesome. But maybe I'm just, again, I'm not at a critical mass enough where enough folks back consistently where I can look at that and say, yeah, I can sort of get rid of the ad, get rid of having kind of the YouTube's ads as in terms of a little bit of a boost and go with it. But I can't. I mean, I literally don't make any money at this at all. The little bit of money that I get from a Patreon, or the dribs and drabs that I get from YouTube is, it's, I owe myself so much money just in terms of equipment and bandwidth and things like that. And like the servers and things like for my forums, things like that, like I'm so in the hole. But even then, like maybe I could buy a book or two. And folks who use my links for drive-through also help a lot. So I appreciate all of that also. So like at this point, like I need all the help I can get. So it's, if I can't, and I don't have enough flex, I'm not big enough where folks will come to me and want to run like native ads where I could actually have an ad. What do they call it? An ad, whatever they do, where someone actually has like a native ad. It's not it's something that somebody pays for, like a sponsorship type thing. I don't have the numbers for that. So until then, I need all the help I can get. So some option that's like, oh, you can just have a little donate button at the bottom of the player. That's not going to do it, because I need something that is more consistent. And it's not going to be like 1 in 10,000 people would use. So, it's one of those things that I'm on YouTube primarily, though I'm also on Twitch and other ones, and I would love to find some things, but hosting multimedia and streaming that is a ton of cost, and I'm not there yet. I may never get there. If I do, But anyway, Nightbot murked me, says Brian Smith. I get it. Nightbot has no chill. That's true. All right, so this was posted to Prismatic Wasteland on June 20th. Posers, and Poser. And I've seen this Poser or Foser, like faux OSR. I don't know. They're getting some goofy acronyms now, but I guess we know that we're really moving into a post-OSR world where we're getting all these kind of goofy acronyms. So Prismatic Wasteland, I guess he's quoting his own tweet here, or their own tweet here, saying, quote, OSR, unquote, is mostly a marketing term at this point, but I consider my games to be post-OSR, i.e. poser. Okay, so that's definitely a possibility. Never tweet a joke because it might come true. In spring of 2021, I was still just spreading my wings as a blogger, but already sensed that the movement aspect of the OSR, or old school Renaissance / revival, may have run its course already, which I think I talked about a few times, actually. The meta OSR discourse is back again, or at least it was when I started writing this, and maybe will be once I get around to posting it. Is the OSR dead? Is the OSR a neoconservative fascist movement? Is it not? Is it not a monolith? I try not to engage in this perennial conversation because it honestly has nothing to do with actually playing games, making your games better, or even understanding why we play games. We all know to never wrestle a pig because you both get dirty, but the pig likes it. However, here I am getting in the mud, but I'm going to try to do so while at least acting as if I'm above it all. Quote, I don't care who started it, I'm ending it, unquote. But this essay probably will neither end the OSR nor unend it, but at least it will be something to point to when someone says, so what exactly is the post-OSR? Because to the extent I want to categorize my gaming stuff, it is post-OSR. And you might be a poser too. All right, first I need a drink. Smith says, Spinger sponsorship must be in the works at this point. Not quite, and they're not going to love it that I'm drinking Polar. They're one of their, I would guess, chief enemies. An art movement is a tendency or style in art with a specific common philosophy or goal, followed by a group of artists during a specific period of time, usually a few months, years, or decades, or at least with the heyday of the movement defined within a number of years. Hey, wait a minute, exclaims the imaginary reader. You got to tell me what the post-OSR is. You can't just copy and paste the first line in a Wikipedia article at me. Oh, but I can. But this is necessary. I need to first talk about what the OSR was and is before I can get to the poser. But this blog post is more of a sandbox than a railroad. So scroll down to, but what the hell is the poser if you don't want to need a primer on the rise and fall of the OSR first. How long is this? Maybe do I want to go down? Do we want to go into this? I didn't realize how long this was. Frederick Ork says, neo-fascists, and yet the largest demographic of OSR users are in South America and Africa. I think the thing is that we have to differentiate between, on that point, Frederick, is probably, and like with everything, is the most vocal versus the most numerous, because they're often not the same, right? There's a very vocal minority, and then there's that silent majority doing whatever. And I've always said this about the 5e community, that you have the very vocal minority on the internet who will go just ape about certain issues. And sometimes those issues, I mean, a lot of times the issues are fair, and sometimes the issues will trickle down to the masses, but often you're in these kind of edge cases or things that just that majority who are just at their local game stops or in their homes just playing don't care about. And I think the same thing about the OSR. There's a lot of folks who've been playing, never stopped playing second edition. They're not Renaissance or Revival because they just never stopped, or folks who are playing it, or folks who picked up a game, whatever game you like, and are playing it and have no inkling about any of the conversation going on, don't care about any of the conversation going on. But then you have some folks, and again, not to hijack this, but like to this week on the internet, which I think I mentioned on one of my working streams, there was the whole Broasar thing with RPG Pundit kind of melting down, and like all this stuff happens on the internet, which is all these vocal folks inside the vocal minority yelling at each other about one thing or another, taking sides about one thing or another. But I think it's fair to say that some of the very loudest voices have in the OSR, some of them, not all of them, and it definitely depends on which social media you're on, have tendencies that, lean in certain directions. And then, and then you can think about how strongly you feel about that or not. It says OSR versus a-hole SR. Pretty much. Magnus says, hey, Magnus says that OSR always struck me as a fairly loose term. I think the more people try to nail it down, the more the virtual ink is spilled over something that ultimately doesn't really matter. That's probably true. And Kabuki Kid says there isn't even consensus as to what the OSR even stands for, which is also true. And Magnus points out that OSR is ultimately more of a mindset or design philosophy. Yeah, I think so. Frederick says that English speaking is in the minority in the OSR. It might be, but obviously as English speakers, it's the majority for us. Because I see stuff from a lot of those other creators and folks that you're talking about, Frederick, but it's the stuff that they put in English. And obviously I can't track down, because I know there's a big like Brazilian OSR things, and I'm not tracking down stuff in Portuguese. I don't know where it is. I don't, so yeah. So I'm gonna skip over the background because we got all that. I mean, there's, oh my gosh. Well, look at that. Maybe I should have skipped over it because there I am right there. Funny. Oh, that's cool. Well, thanks to whoever runs for the shout out. I was not expecting that. All right. Let's see. Yeah, so it's going on more kind of history stuff. All right, so now let's get down to what even is Poser. Brian Smith says they play so infrequently, participate in stop and go OSR. Oh, nice. I like it. Yeah. Now that I've been quoted in the Prismatic, now that I've been linked to the Prismatic Wasteland blog, surely now celebrity is soon to follow. Okay, what even is Poser? Marsha B says, you see, there's OSR, post OSR, OSR core, post OSR core, power OSR, OSR revival, post OSR revival, hard OSR, indie OSR, and sword dream. I could see that. He says it's easiest to start with what Poser is not. Unlike the OSR in its heyday, the Poser is not a movement. There are movements or the inklings of movements within the Poser, but these proto-movements lack any common philosophy and are composed of different, often bickering groups. This was true to an extent even during the origins to heyday of the OSR, but the extent is unquestionably different. The Poser does have something in common, though. While the OSR were tabletop RPG thoughts and games inspired by old school games, the Poser are tabletop RPG thoughts and games that are inspired, at least partially, by the output of the OSR itself. I, for instance, have never played BXD&D or Traveler or whatever old school game du jour. What inspires me are the games made in the past decade, or even those themselves inspired by games in the past decade. Games like Into the Odd or Knave, each of which has spawned their own family of game descendants. But the Poser only shares a lineage. It has little to no ancestral memory, and largely due to the more siloed post G plus mediums promoting factionalism. I'm skipping the parenthetical stuff here. Oh, but that's a long parenthetical. The Poser is not a community. The most contact the factions within the Poser get with each other is on Twitter. Twitter is not a place for communities. Let's see. There's some stuff here in the chat. Oh, man. It says driving around in a car wrapped with Spindrift logos like a NASCAR driver. I totally would. I would totally wear some kind of... I would totally go to let's say, PAX Unplugged wearing like one of those NASCAR, race car driver jumpsuits with Spindrift logos all over me. Do it, Spindrift. Call me. Let's talk. Frederick says it's mainly due to D&D books being $90 in Argentina as opposed to the homegrown NSR game being $3. That makes sense. I mean, books are expensive and customs and import are expensive. So yeah, it happens. Brian Smith says all these subgenres remind me of the same thing people do with music, tedious categorization most of the time. Yeah, I think the thing is that, and it's probably because of some of the very contentious voices, at least for Frederick, at least in English-speaking OSR, that you get people who want to kind of get away from it a bit. And I don't blame it. Like, part of me is like, I'd like to get away from it too, partly because I do believe at this point, like I said in that video that was linked to, that it's not really useful so much anymore, other than in just in the marketing sense, because people know OSR and people don't know it. I think I'm going to kind of breeze through because this is long. Oh, that's it. I think we got the gist of what Poser is post OSR, and that's fine. I mean, I do think we're moving into a post OSR thing, and I think people are looking for maybe what to do with themselves. And I think that's the same thing. I forget who it was on in the Lemmy was asking about. Where is it? Hold on here. Here we go. And every once in a while, there it is. Okay. So this was Alex Schroeder, who I think is behind the person who's behind Text Mapper and Hex Describe, I believe, about against splitting RPGs into OSR, DIY, indie, story games, etc. And there's some good arguments to be made for why do we even need have those labels anymore. I think my comment on it was I do think there's still kind of a safe spaces element to it that you can go. I would find this in a lot of places and some Discords and in forums and in different whether it's Reddits or something else, that let's say you're a big 5e fan and you want to talk some 5th edition stuff and you posted to say like a generic RPG community, you get some people coming out of the woodwork to talk about how much they hate 5th edition. You should play something else. It's terrible. Like and it's like, that's not what I'm looking for. I just want to talk some 5th edition stuff and feel okay doing it and not feel shouted down by people. And I think that's why you might feel that way, that, well, if I go to a 5th edition forum, I should hope that it's friendly to me in 5th edition. And I feel the same way about OSR, because there's stuff just part of that, not OSR as a system, but OSR and the sort of the gaming philosophies that tend to be associated with OSR means that if I want to talk about the fact that my game is not balanced, hey, my campaign's not balanced at all, and this and that and the other, then people coming out of the woodwork to talk about how lame an idea is because they're talking about it from a 5th edition aspect where balance is hyper important, or at least it seems to be, that's not helpful to me at all. It's not helpful to them. We're literally just talking across each other, and it's just going to be frustrated. Whereas I know that OSR, if I go to an OSR forum, they're going to be friendly to those ideas because those ideas are, if not baked into the OSR itself, are kind of attendant to it. So it's when you say you're going to an OSR forum, part of it is system, part of it is also, I feel like, all the things that we talk about associated with that people feel comfortable with. But kind of like what I was getting back to about people creating their own spaces, I think it'd be great if people created spaces for all kinds of things and not have to go to some just big generic forum to talk about something specific. Make your own space for it. Make a Lemmy, make a K-Bin, make a forum about it, or go to a forum and ask, like me, if someone came to me and say, hey, Todd, I'd love to have a specific category about such and such and this and that, I would say, great. And I would do it. The thing is, I think it's just disheartening. I think the other thing that prevents it is because obviously the more niche you get with these, the less traffic you get. And when people go to a place, they see it's kind of a ghost town, they're not going to participate, even if it's the thing they want, which means that you can end up working against yourself a little bit, or maybe it's working against the principle that you might have been trying to do in the first place. So if you come and you make, I just want to do a Sword Dreams RPG channel, you got to live with the fact that you're going to have to slowly gain audience and hope that those folks will come and participate and stick around and not look at it and say, boy, there's only one person posting and they only post once a month, so there's nothing to do here. And then they leave. So it's hard. And obviously the bigger your net is, the more people you're going to drag. So there's that too. Kabuki Kid says $90 for a book is crazy unless it's a massive coffee table book full of photos. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, depending on where you live, sometimes you gotta make do. But yeah, it's tough. Frederick says that Karen is $3 on Amazon. Yeah, because I mean, again, Yohai Gal being an absolute gent puts it up for basically cost, so it's going to be super cheap in places like that. But the thing is, Frederick, I think for the books, it's not that the book itself costs $90. It's the when you get to the conversion rate currency wise, and you get to wherever it's printed and shipped, right? It's all that stuff. I mean, this is why I know for things like board games and Kickstarters, well, it's going to cost this much in the States or Canada, but then when I'm getting it shipped, even to the UK or Europe or places that are, we associate as being more, maybe potentially closer trading partners, let's say from the United States than Argentina, though that might not actually be true. Once you add in shipping and you add in customs and all this stuff, things just balloon. I mean, things are always more expensive on islands. Wherever you have to ship, if you have to ship stuff halfway around the world, and especially when you're not at scale, this is not this is not a container load from China where the fact that you're at scale means that you're reducing the cost per item. Like you're just shipping a singular item, gets pricey. Unfortunately. Brian Smith dares. Brian Smith is daring Spindrift. Yeah, make the call, you cowards. Exactly. Magnus, going back to the blog, says this person seems to be desperately trying to reinvent NSR just to differentiate themselves from the alleged brown shirts hiding in OSR's closet. I don't know if they're always hiding, Magnus. I mean, look, a lot of it depends on your particular political vantage point, how those people are. But I wouldn't say that they're hiding. If they're hiding, they're hiding in plain sight. But yeah, I mean, I think that is part of it. I think people do, in a sense, want to differentiate themselves from certain things. And regardless of where you stand, I'm sure that there are, on the other side of the coin, I'm sure there are people who want to disassociate themselves from these folks and be like, how can I get away from them? Either way, you end up I mean, look, it's the thing is you end up in a group with people who you don't necessarily want to be in a group with. So how do you do that? You're being lumped into something and you want to make your own lump. So I get it. Terrence says, I think knowing what a game offers is helpful. No need to abandon simply describing things. Yeah, I think that's true too. I mean, I think one of the things I wanted, what I thought would be good, was to actually be more descriptive. Because in that sense, OSR or NSR are not very descriptive of the mechanics anymore. Because the term is so broad, we've lost that ability to say, if it's an OSR game, it's essentially very, very similar to classic D&D mechanics. We can't really say that anymore. We can't say that about NSR games. And I would much rather get to, hey, this is a D6 dice pool that's gritty fantasy and these things, that kind of thing. I think I even mentioned it would be cool if someone came up with some symbology for those. So you can put on the back of the book. What is this? D6 dice pool. What is this? This is a BX system, or whatever. TSR 81, TSR 79, TSR 74, TSR 76, target 20, or, D20 was like that. You say D20 and that actually does do a lot of it's D20, you theoretically that would mean that all the mechanics are D20 based and dudes like, okay, great. But we don't do that really yet. Brian Smith says the fragmentation makes it hard to connect in certain ways too, or makes aggregators, influencers more important. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? We want to, it's good to have all that differentiation, but then, yeah, you do get fragmentation. It is something where it's nice where you can have kind of federated. That's what I do like about the federation, the concept of federating. You can kind of have both. You can have all these individual small Lemmy communities, and then you can follow it. I mean, that's kind of was the Reddit dream too, right? Or what Reddit was aiming for is you could have all these different small communities, but the interface you're using and unites them all together. So you end up with one feed with all these little communities interspersed, and then you can kind of intermingle and cross post and do all that stuff with very little friction. I mean, that was kind of the Reddit ideal. And I think these kind of the sort of federated, this federated ecosystem is kind of also about, theoretically, is you get to have the best of both worlds. Really small targeted communities, but you can also, as an end user, you can see them all together, and then you can kind of cross-pollinate between them. I mean, I think that's the dream scenario. How close we get, I don't know. Magnus says OSR, NSR also means non-corporatized. I think that's true. To the most part, not necessarily. I mean, there are, I think non-corporatized to a great degree. It's hard for me to say for some of these if you could still say it's non-corporatized. But I agree that's kind of part of the ethos that at least ideally they're non-corporate entities. Frederick says that D&D eats the shipping costs and warehouses down there, and the game book still costs $90. Well, I think there's also things like, I don't know how much they're eating, Frederick. I don't pretend to know it all, but I don't think they're trying to gouge the Argentinians. I think that there's just a lot of factors that come in, and when you calculate it all together, you get to $90. I don't pretend to know everything. Maybe I could try to reach out to someone from Wizards to talk logistics and their shipping, but I'm guessing that that's just unfortunately how the cookie crumbles. But this is something that when people who live down there, they're used to for all sorts of stuff, not just D&D books. I mean, I see it in terms of when I see people talking about things shipped to Europe, about, people always asking for different things. Is there any like European distributors? Because I don't want to pay twice the amount of the book on shipping. They're just realities. I don't know how it all settles for Wizards, because I don't work for them and I have no information, but I feel pretty sure that they want to sell the books and they're not trying to just hammer Argentina. I don't know, that there's no long-standing grudge between Hasbro and Argentina. That's just, I'm going to go with that as my guiding principle, unless someone can show me somewhere, unless there's an enemies list surfaces. That'll be my assumption. Terrence says they're fine with RPG fash, making their own walled garden, bring up the garden behind. And Ian says, curious if local print-on-demand solutions are viable in those regions. I mean, I'm sure there. I have no idea. I'm sure there are. They print books in these places, whether for whatever reasons, Wizards or Hasbro I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. I don't know. I would just bet that these companies, yes, they want to make money. They're also trying to sell things, and they try to find that medium. How much money can we make while still selling it, right? And in the U.S., that turns out to be whatever that $40, $50 range for those books. But they are nice, hardcover, full color books. The binding on some of them, my PHB fell apart. What have you. But I think you discover this, and I haven't done this myself, but I've definitely had talks with people, and there's that kind of little bit where you discover that little eye-opening bit when you go to make your own hardcover book, and you start to see that, like, whoa, and then you kind of appreciate a little bit the pricing a little bit more, because it's not some abstract thing where you just think like, oh, it's the man trying to keep us all down. It's like, oh my gosh, these things do get expensive. And yeah, Wizards is able to do things at scales that help them make more money and able to put things different ways, but it's not, those books ain't cheap. Those books ain't cheap. Anywho, I think, I've gone over time. All right, well, I didn't get to a lot, but I thanks to Brian Smith. Brian Smith, I will reach out to you separately. Like I said, I want to ask you about something. So I will try to find out. I know we contacted before. It might have just been on the forums, because I know I had some other question about something or other. But I think there's a DM function on the forums, so maybe I'll just DM you there, and we'll start there. More reasons to go on the forums. You can interface with such leading lights of the OSR, NSR, or whatever movement as myself and Brian Smith and others. And, of course, on the Lemmy, if you go to Lemmy, we are Lemmy... we're on the server we're on or the instance, I guess, is Lemmy, lemm.ee /c/OSR. You can also find us on Mastodon. If you just search for OSR, you can pretty much find it all there. We're here, there, we're everywhere. We're talking about gaming materials. Folks, have a great, if you're in here now, Friday and your weekend. If you're watching or listening to this later, then have a great whatever day, night that is. Game on, everybody, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.